Hi, grade 2. I am so excited to read this book to you today. So this book is called Tokyo Digs a Garden, and what I really like about this book is the illustrations are bright and the story is very creative. So I'm going to read the book to you and then I'm going to give you an assignment to go with it. So, Tokyo Digs a Garden. Tokyo lived with his mother, his father, his grandfather, and a cat named Kevin in a small house that stood among tall buildings. Tokyo's grandfather had lived in the small house since he was a boy. He loved to tell stories of how things used to be. Oh, I think I said it. Yep. Oh, then the house looked over hills and forests and meadows and streams. Deer grazed on the hills, foxes ran through the forest, birds sang in the meadows, salmon leaped from the streams. But now, all of that was gone. Tokyo's grandfather said the city had eaten it all up. Cities had to eat something after all. One sunny spring afternoon, Tokyo and Kevin were playing on the doorstep when they heard the music of an ice cream truck. Kevin jumped quickly over the gate. Kevin loved ice cream. But when they got to the street, they saw that there was no ice cream truck at all, just an old cart pulled by an old bicycle, pedaled by an even older woman. The cart was not full of ice cream, it was full of dirt. Kevin was very disappointed. The old woman held out her hand. She was holding 3 seeds. "Plant these seeds," said the old woman, "and they will grow into whatever you wish." She dropped the seeds into Tokyo's hand and continued along the road. Tokyo shrugged, put the seeds into his pocket, and followed Kevin back to the house. At lunch, Tokyo put the seeds on the table. Grandfather looked at the seeds. Then he looked up at the small piece of sky peeking out between the tall buildings. "Today is a good day for planting," he said. Tokyo gulped down his glass of water, pretending he was a city drinking up a deep, cold lake. Tokyo went into his backyard where nothing was growing, not even a weed. He looked at the ground and wondered where to plant the seeds. A little bug crawled slowly across the bricks before disappearing into a crack. Tokyo had an idea. He lifted a brick, and underneath was cool, sandy soil. He made 3 holes with his finger, dropped 1 seed into each, and quietly made his wish. Then, Tokyo covered the seeds with dirt. That night, Tokyo dreamed he was riding an old bicycle through the city. All of a sudden, he turned into a fox, and the buildings changed into creaking pines. Kevin dreamed of ice cream. The next morning, Tokyo heard a bird singing. When he peeked out his window, he saw 3 small wildflowers sprouting up from the bricks in the middle of the yard. He ran to tell his grandfather, but when he got to the kitchen, Grandfather was already staring out the window in disbelief. "Nah," said Grandfather, shaking his head. "I've never seen anything grow that fast." And Tokyo's garden kept growing. After breakfast, the bricks around the flowers were completely covered with soft, spongy moss. By dinner, 3 trees had grown, and the moss had become a meadow of wild flowers and shrubs. By the next morning, the garden had grown up and over the buildings, across the street, down the road, and over and under the cars into the expressway. The day after that, huge trees towered over apartments. Their strong roots broke the pavement. Vines climbed skyscrapers. Water poured from hydrants, flooding the streets and turning them into rivers. The day after that, the city was completely wild. Deer foraged in office lobbies. Rabbits burrowed under library carpets. Bison stampeded through the traffic lights. Bears climbed telephone poles to search for honey, where bees had made their hives. Tokyo, Grandfather, and Kevin lay on their backs in the yard, which was now in the middle of a deep, dark forest. "This garden is much too big," said Grandfather, shaking his head. "The cars can't drive because the streets are full of jumping salmon. Your mother had to take the old rowboat to work today, and there was a sloth in the elevator of your father's office, so he had to take the stairs. What are we going to do?" Tokyo thought for a moment. Kevin's tail twitched. A pack of monkeys swooped from branch to branch in the canopy above. "I think," said Tokyo, "that we will just have to get used to it." Grandfather watched a flock of cranes flying across the small piece of sky, peeking out between the trees. He remembered how, as a young boy, he would watch them flying overhead before winter settled in. "I think maybe you are right," he said. Gardens have to grow somewhere, after all. And that was Tokyo Digs a Garden. One of the things I really like about this book is that it inspires so much creativity, and the message is kind of relevant during this time of uncertainty. We are all having to get used to a new kind of normal, and this book really is inspirational in the sense that sometimes a new normal isn't always bad. So I challenge you to find the good in the changes that are happening. And for your art assignment today, I would like you to use the inspiration here. So you'll notice that in this book the colors are quite bright. So we have lots of different colors used. It's not very realistic. So I would encourage you to draw yourself in a wild garden. Now this does take place in a city. So some of the pictures towards the end, they do have city elements and garden elements together. So how can you include perhaps like a building or some cars with also plants and flowers? And then if you have a pet, would you like to draw them as a part of it as well? All right, that's it for today, and I look forward to hearing your guys' thoughts in the comments. And of course, I'll be seeing you soon.